I am doing my practice from the book Effective Public Speaking by Dale, and here I am. Let us analyze that speech. Let us see how it is constructed, how it gets its effects. In the first place, it has a beginning and an ending. That is a rare virtue, more rare than you may be inclined to think. It starts somewhere, it goes there straight as wild geese on the wing. It doesn't dawdle, it loses no time. It has freshness, individuality. The speaker opens by saying something about his city that the other speakers could not possibly say about theirs. He points out that his city is the birthplace of the entire nation. He states that it is one of the largest and most beautiful cities in the world. But that claim is general right, standing by itself. It would not impress anyone very much. The speaker knew that. So he helped his audience visualize the magnitude of Philadelphia by seeing it has an area equal to the combined size of Milwaukee, Boston, Paris, and Berlin. That is definite, concrete, it is interesting, it is surprising, it makes a mark. It drives home the idea better than a whole page of statistics would have done. Next, he declares that Philadelphia is known everywhere as the great workshop of the world. Sounds exaggerated, doesn't it? Like propaganda. Had he proceeded immediately to the next point, no one would have been convinced. But he doesn't. He pauses to enumerate the products in which Philadelphia leads the world: wooden goods, leather goods, knit goods, textiles, felt hats, hardware, tools, storage batteries, steel ships. Doesn't sound so much like propaganda now, does it? Philadelphia builds a railroad locomotive every 2 hours, day and night, and more than one half the people in this great country ride in street cars made in the city of Philadelphia. Well, I never knew that. We muse. Perhaps I rode downtown yesterday in one of those street cars. I will look tomorrow and see where my town buys its cars. 1,000 cigars every minute. 2 pairs of stockings for every man, woman, and child in this country. We are still more impressed. Maybe my favorite cigar is made in Philadelphia. And these socks I have on. What does the speaker do next? Jump back to the subject of the size of Philadelphia that he covered first and give us some fact that he forgot then. No, not at all. He sticks to a point until he finishes it, has done with it, and need never return to it again. For that we are duly grateful, Mr. Speaker. For what is more confusing and muddling than to have a speaker darting from one thing to another and back again as erratic as a bat in the twilight? Yet many a speaker does just that. Instead of covering his points in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he covers them as a football captain calls out signals: 27, 34, 19, 2. No, he is worse than that. He covers them like this: 27, 34, 27, 19, 2, 34, 19. But this speaker, however, steams straight ahead on scheduled time, never idling, never turning back, swerving neither to the right nor left, like one of those locomotives he has been talking about. But he makes now the weakest point of his entire speech. Philadelphia, he declares, is one of the largest medical, art, and educational centers in the country. He merely announces that, then speeds on to something else. Only 12 words to animate that fact, to make it vivid, to engrave it on the memory. Only 12 words lost submerged in a sentence containing a total of 65. It doesn't work. Of course not. The human mind does not operate like a string of steel traps. He devotes so little time to this point, is so general, so vague. seems so unimpressed himself that the effect on the heart is almost nil. What should we have done? He realized that he could establish this point with the self same technique that he just employed to establish the fact that Philadelphia is the workshop of the world. He knew that. He also knew that he would have a stopwatch held on him during the contest, that he would have 5 minutes, not a second more. So he had to slur over this point or slight others. There are more individual homes in the city of Philadelphia than there are in any other city in the world. How does he make this phrase of his topic impressive and convincing? First, he gives the number 3,97,000. Second, he visualizes the number. If these homes were placed on 25-foot lots side by side in a single row, that row would reach all the way from Philadelphia, clear through this convention hall at Kansas City, and then to Denver, a distance of 1881 miles. His audience probably forgot the number he gave before he had finished the sentence, but forgot that picture. That would have been well nigh impossible. So much for cold material facts, but they are not the stuff out of which eloquence is fashioned. This speaker aspired to build up to a climax, to touch the heart, to stir the feelings. So now, on the home stretch, he deals with emotional material. He tells what the ownership of those homes means to the spirit of the city. He denounces those imported diseases known as socialism and Bolshevism. He eulogizes Philadelphia as the very fountainhead of American liberty. Liberty, a magic word, a word full of feeling, a sentiment for which millions have laid down their lives. That phrase in itself is good, but it is 1,000 times better when he backs it up with concrete references to his historic events and documents, dear, sacred to the hearts of his hearers. It is the city where the first American flag was made. It is the city where the first Congress of the United States met. It is the city where the Declaration of Independence was signed. Liberty Bell, a sacred mission to spread the American spirit, to keep the fires of freedom burning, so that with God's permission the government of Washington, Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt may be an inspiration to all humanity. That is a real climax. So much for the composition of this talk, but admirable as it is from the standpoint of construction, this speech could come to grief, could easily have been brought to naught had it been expressed in a calm manner devoid of all spirit and vitality. But the speaker delivered it as he composed it, with a feeling and enthusiasm born of the deepest sincerity. Small wonder that it won first prize, that it was awarded the Chicago Cup. The way Dr. Cornwell planned his speeches, there are not, as I have already said, any infallible rules that will solve the question of the best arrangement. There are no designs or schemes or charts that will fit all or even a majority of speeches. Yet here are a few speech plans that will prove usable in some instances. The late Dr. Russell H. Cornwell, the author of the famous Acres of Diamonds, once informed me that he had built many of his innumerable speeches on this outline. State your facts, argue for them, apply for action. Many people have found this plan very helpful and stimulating. First is show something that is wrong. Second, show how to remedy it. Third, ask for a cooperation. Or to put it in another way, first, here is a situation that ought to be remedied. Second, we ought to do so and so about the matter. Third, you ought to help for these reasons. This outlines briefly still another speech plan. First, secure interested attention. Second, win confidence. Third, state your facts. Educate people regarding the merits of your proposition. appeal to the motives that make men act. How famous men have built talk. Former Senator Albert J. Beveridge wrote a very short and very practical book entitled The Art of Public Speaking. The speaker must be master of his subject, said this noted political campaigner. That means that all the facts must be collected, arranged, studied, digested. Not only data on one side, but material on the other side and on every side, all of it. And be sure that they are facts, not mere assumptions or unproved assertions. Take nothing for granted. Therefore, check up and verify every item. This means painstaking research to be sure, but what of it? Are you not proposing to inform, instruct, and advise your fellow citizens? Are you not setting yourself up as an authority? Having assembled and marshaled the facts of any problem, think out for yourself the solution those facts compel. Thus, your speech will have originality and personal force. It will be vital and compelling. There will be you in it. Then write out your ideas as clearly and logically as you can. In other words, present the facts on both sides and then present the conclusion that those facts make clear and definite. I begin, said Woodrow Wilson when asked to explain his methods, with a list of the topics I want to cover. Arranging them in my mind is their natural relations. Then, that is, I fit the bones of the thing together, then I write it out in shorthand. I have always been accustomed to writing in shorthand, finding it a great saver of time. This done, I copy it on my own typewriter, changing phrases, correcting sentences, and adding material as I go along. Theodore Roosevelt prepared his talks in the characteristic Rooseveltian manner. He dug up all the facts, reviewed them, appraised them, determined their findings, arrived at his conclusions, arrived with a feeling of certainty that was unshakable. Then, with a pad of notes before him, he started dictating, and he dictated his speech very rapidly so that it would have rush and spontaneity and the spirit of life. Then he went over this typewritten copy, revised it, inserted, deleted, filled it with pencil marks, and then dictated it all over again. I never won anything, said he, without hard labor and the exercise of my best judgment and careful planning and working long in advance. Often he called in critics to listen to him as he dictated or read his speech to them. He refused to debate with them the wisdom of what he had said. His mind was already made up on that point and made up irrevocably. He wanted to be told not what to say but how to say it. Again and again, he went over his typewritten copies, cutting, correcting, improving. That was the speech that the newspapers printed. Of course, he did not memorize it. He spoke extemporaneously, so the talk actually delivered often differed somewhat from the published and polished one. But the task of dictating and revising was excellent preparation. It made him familiar with his material, with the order of his points. It gave him a smoothness and sureness and polish that he could hardly have obtained in any other fashion. Many students of speech have found it illuminating to dictate their talks to the dictaphone and then to listen to themselves. Illuminating, yes, and sometimes disillusioning and chastening also, I fear. It is a most wholesome exercise. I recommend it. This practice of actually writing out what you are going to say will force you to think. It will clarify your ideas, it will hook them in your memory, it will reduce your mental wandering to a minimum, it will improve your diction. Benjamin Franklin tells in his autobiography how he improved his diction, how he developed readiness in using words, and how he taught himself method in arranging his thoughts. This story of his life is a literary classic, and unlike most classics, it's easy to read and thoroughly enjoyable. It is almost a model of plain, straightforward English. Every would-be speaker and writer can pursue it with pleasure and profit. I think you will like the selection I refer to. Here it is. Thank you. That's it for the day.